Okay, hi guys. So let's talk about different Chicago Bulls trade possibilities for the off season. I'm Paul Gross here from Bleacher Report and the Best Sports Blog, and this is Loki the puppy, who really hates being left alone because he's so small. So he'll be in the video too. So let's chat about it. So the Bulls have three real players they could look to trade: Taj Gibson, um, Carlos Boozer, and Joakim Noah. So let's talk about Taj Gibson first. Gibson is really the prime trade candidate for the Bulls because it's still a year away from restricted free agency. But at that point, the Bulls will have to pay him, and they're also going to have Nikola Mirotic coming over from Europe, and they'll still have Boozer. So Taj Gibson's a guy that they're going to look to ship. So there's really a few possible options. They could send him to Detroit for the 9th overall pick, and then Will Bynum to make the salaries work. Detroit would love to have a guy like Gibson who's tough and who plays defense, who comes from a winning system, to pair with Greg Monroe and also Brandon Knight and their other young players and really create a winning culture. Also, the Bulls could send him to Phoenix for Jared Dudley, who's another hard-working swingman type player, as well as the 13th overall pick. And in the case of the picks, the Bulls would be using them to draft their shooting guard of the future, which is really the only future position that the Bulls are missing, because they have Rose at point guard, and they have Deng at small forward, and they got Joakim Noah for the future at center. And they still got Boozer at power forward, as well as Mirotic as their power forward of the future, but they don't have anybody at shooting guard who they're really confident in. They also have the possibility of trading. Okay, you can go. They also have the possibility of trading Taj Gibson for picks from Sacramento. The Kings have a number of different options they could trade. They have DeMarcus Cousins. They also have the number 5 overall pick in the draft and Tyreke Evans, but that's a harder trade to swing. It's hard to say whether, even though Gibson is valuable, the Kings would be willing to part with a top 5 draft pick for Gibson. Although the Washington Wizards parted with a top 5 draft pick for Randy Foye and Mike Miller, so it's been done before. So we'll have to see. In terms of other trades, Carlos Boozer may well be on the move. The Bulls are likely to amnesty him in 2013 anyway, so getting rid of him early would be good. Boozer's hard to move because he's been regressing as a player, he's older, and his contract is terrible, but there are a few options. The Bulls could trade him for Elton Brand, which at first sounds like a strange deal for the Bulls, but if you think about it, there's a lot of benefits. Brand still can average double-double points, get a bunch of rebounds, and make fairly decent mid-range shots out to 20 feet. So he replicates most of what Boozer does with slightly better defense, especially alongside a guy like Joakim Noah. He's an old fan favorite, which would be great because the Bulls love Brand and they're sick of Boozer in a lot of ways. And he also has only 1 year left on his deal for $18 million. So he would allow the Bulls to basically play out the deal for the same relatively that they'd be paying Boozer and then save the amnesty provision for a rainy day, which, considering the fact that the Bulls are a contending group with a lot of big contracts, could really come in handy depending on what's going on. They could also send Boozer to the Knicks for Amar'e Stoudemire, which is really a trade that everybody should pursue. Everybody knows that Amar'e is a much better player than Boozer, but that's not really the point here. The Knicks can't trade Amar'e anywhere else because the contract is huge and it's uninsured, and very few teams that are contending and therefore would want a guy like Amar'e have their amnesty provision left. Orlando doesn't. Nobody else really does. The Lakers aren't interested in him. The Bulls could really use that kind of post player, and if they got rid of Boozer, then they would have the ability to amnesty Amar'e if his knees gave out or wasn't going well or anything else was happening. And the Bulls are a big enough market franchise to handle the amnesty. So that makes a lot of sense. The last player, of course, is Joakim Noah. There's a lot of possibilities for Noah. Noah, of course, is one of the best centers in the NBA, and he'd be enticing to almost any team. However, the Bulls would have to be really careful about who they trade him to because they need to get a lot of value back. One option is to go talk to the Sacramento Kings and see exactly how much Sacramento is willing to give up to pair Noah with either Tyreke Evans or DeMarcus Cousins and give them a work ethic. Bulls could look to get one of those two stars plus Sacramento's number 5 overall pick, which would be really hard to turn down, as well as possibly, one of Sacramento's swingmen who would be fairly helpful to the Bulls, depending on the situation. But really, the only real trade the Bulls should look at for a player as good as Noah and as important as he is to the Bulls is the Dwight Howard trade. Of course, for about a year, we've been sitting on this trade because Dwight didn't want to go to the Bulls for reasons that are currently inexplicable. But if New Jersey falls off the rails and Deron Williams goes elsewhere and he goes to Dallas, which wouldn't then have the money to sign him outright, when he's a free agent and would have tough time swinging the trade because of the assets, then he's really going to have to look at the Bulls because what other big market options does he really have? And if he starts looking at the Bulls and he realizes that the Bulls are exactly the fit he needs another star in Rose to work with him. Deng is a great third player on a championship team, and even Boozer or Mirotic or whoever else they find will be a good fourth and fifth options. So that's a fantastic thing the Bulls should look at. I'd love to hear your other trade ideas. Send me some comments on the Bleacher Report article, which you can see in the subscription and which you might have found the video from, and let's duke it out. Thanks, guys.